First, I'd like to say I'm Robbie Gamble. I'm one of the I'm part of the festival organizing committee. This year's festival is made possible by the generous support of our festival sponsors, the Brattleboro Community Television, Jenny Altschuler and Barry Green, Elizabeth Catlin, the Stepansky Family Trust, the Vermont Humanities Council, and poets and writers. We would also like to thank our advertisers, and we encourage you to support them. The festival is run entirely by volunteers, but has very real expenses, so we encourage you to make a donation to one of the donation boxes sometime this weekend, or you can use the QR code online through our website. And I think the QR code is plastered all over programs. And
we also have the little cards.
Oh, and the little cards. So yeah, you can't avoid the QR codes. They will chase you everywhere. Now, please take a moment now to turn off the ringer on your cell phone. I'm going to do the same thing too, because I don't think I have yet. But please feel free to use your phone to take photos and to share them with us on social media. So I'm very excited to be able to introduce to you Carlene Kucharczyk. Her debut collection, Strange Hymn, published this spring by the University of Massachusetts Press, is the winner of the Juniper Prize for Poetry. She is the recipient of a creation grant from the Vermont Arts Council and holds an MFA from North Carolina State University. Her work has been published in journals such as the Mid-American Review, Green Mountains Review, Poetry Northwest, Tupelo Quarterly, and Conduit, and has been nominated for a Chard Prize. In the prologue of her debut collection, Strange Hymn, Carlene Kucharczyk exhorts the reader to be wholly occupied with the singing. And indeed, the poems that follow are imbued with a music that is compelling, metaphysical, and strange. Weaving a counterpoint between vivid imagery and philosophical musings, she composes trajectories that arc from darkness into light, from subjects as mundane as orthodontics into grappling with the nature of the divine. In Mary, a long poem that elides litany into lyric essay, we encounter a host of Marys. A plaster-cast Mother of God, a Magdalene, a pantsuited Mary Tyler Moore, a letter-writing Mary Wollstonecraft, a rebel saint. We hear a dirge-like pathos in the decaying hotel of the poem Dark Corner, in the funeral setting of the October snow. Elsewhere she soars, as near the end of another essay-length poem, Self-Portrait Through Glass, where she announces, "What I want is uncompromised singing," and surely this is what she has accomplished in Strange Hymn, a singular music of unsettling wonder without compromise. Please welcome Carlene Kucharczyk.
Hello. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Thanks everyone for coming out this morning. And thank you to Robbie and Tim and the other organizers. This has been a lovely festival so far. I've been here before, but never reading. So this is really exciting to be here. I'm just gonna have my phone so I have some idea of what's going on with time. Church. Body, go reverently, submerged in love. Little human cathedral, to be wholly occupied with the singing. On beholding the beloved's rotting body, I think it is beautiful that Emerson dug his wife out of the grave a year and 2 months after she died, just to see how she was making out. Perhaps I would have liked to marry Emerson. This is not the first time I have thought this. I think I would do well with a staunch moralist type, unless, of course, I disagreed, which I likely often would. I do not really like beards anyway. But now I am looking at a picture of Emerson, and it seems he had less of a beard and more of just weird facial hair. I do not know what this particular type is called. I do not like it either. Perhaps I was thinking of Thoreau. I am always thinking of Thoreau. But back to Emerson's wife. Maybe he thought she was caught somewhere between the skeleton and the soul. She was only 20 years old. Who knows? I would not mind. Find it all out. Dig if you have to. I'm from Connecticut originally and also grew up coming to this area, Spofford Lake. And this is a special reading for me right now, too, because my mom's here today. Sorry to call you out. So be nice to me. Not that you all are very nice being here right now. But there's always been that rich literary tradition of New England. And I'm particularly drawn to the American romantics and transcendentalists. And that is definitely part of this book. But moving in a slightly different direction, I'm going to read some poems that are inspired by art, being in such a beautiful space in here. And I loved walking in the door and just this feeling of spaciousness that was really unexpected. And also, I'm not sure if this is what it is exactly, but looking at this artwork and these apples in baskets, Robbie had these beautiful baskets of apples from his yard last night, and you were kind of like the apple fairy, and I had one this morning, and it was delicious. So this is The Sirens, and it's inspired by a painting I saw at the Ringling Museum in Sarasota, Florida, by Edward Burne-Jones. And then looking afterward at this painting that he did and redid and all the slightly different versions. It also had something on there which was just kind of funny to me, calling him like a B-list artist, and I was like, well, I feel like that's good, The Sirens. 1. The moment before it happens should be a good one. Mouths flopping, water, water, or a prayer. And yet, look at us. Dreary board, whitely lighted, ready to braid anchors with our hair. We could learn to breathe the sea, wind it into our lungs. And Odysseus, not tied to the mast with waxen ears, not in the cabin, climb the cliffs, not the tendrilled seaweed. The anchors like to drown deeply. Let them, dying and rising, like gods. Lanterns release to the firstborn wind. Look closely. Your next look will be of corpses. 2. Concern brushed onto you. Will you accept it? Uncover your mouth. No one is singing. Island of ghosts, hushed, nicely tucked among the feathered beds of eternity. Ocean, that's all. Farewell, solo gull. Sleep well among the winds, tread water, peck bits of skin from whales' backs. Something. Heartache is boundless, time is boundlessness. Working clocks on the ocean floor. Only 2 have seen, only 3 have heard. Something I shouldn't have told you. Well then, the wrong dead hour. No way to measure minutes. Need rope. See me. Look closely. Your next look will be before time. 3. Oh, we were just waiting in a gilded room. Wanted to make something of our hands. Found them in each other. Trying to think, subordinate driftwood. Moonless night. Heard a harp. Don't know where. Meet us. The room above the ocean. Swing. Make sure you jump. Dance. Make sure you fall. Drown. Make sure you sink. Into the ballroom. Moonbeam. A window. Lovely sure death. Don't look down. Waiting. For what? Look closely. Your next look will be of abstinence. Curtains. The light they let in, the light they keep out. the darkness that fills the room after the drama of their great closures, the shuffle as they drift across the floor, holding themselves together. Rembrandt, Monet, playing with light, blocking time, then bringing it back. The sheer ones that can't quite keep the morning out. Some thick enough to sleep in. The higher they are, the taller the room appears. Gatekeepers, gathering the light, then giving it back. Their rods span arches. Hemming ours, I cried on the floor. It wasn't how I wanted to spend Saturday. The sun shoveling in, the gold curtains glistening on the floor, waiting to be hung, waiting for the scene to finish. What was it then that would not shine for me? I live in a house without curtains now. My windows let in what others keep out. The intruding stars, the brooding duskiness, the shadows that often appear without an overture. The agony in the garden. Lord, you look more haunted than I have seen you before, as if El Greco had cast himself into the white of your eyes, his singular dark glow transforming your figure, spreading his light over the eerie trees and deepening the rock that echoes your shape. The oblong figures and moonlit clouds, the iceberg madness reigning above, the angel draped in a yellow robe, wings like those of Leda's swan, holding the cup of passion, knowing it will not alter the course of things, the task will still remain, the men already moving the plot deathward. In medias res. We all, in the end, die in medias res, in the middle of a story, of many stories. Mona Simpson. In the middle of a good night's sleep, the middle of an intersection, the middle of dinner, the middle of a kitchen floor, the middle of a hotel room you didn't intend to stay in, the middle of an evening, the middle of a conversation, the middle of rush hour, the others coming and going, you with them there, then gone, the middle of a foreign country, the middle of a war you knew nothing of, the middle of a heist, the middle of your son's first year of high school, the middle of a fight, the middle of a recession, the middle of a book, the middle of a century, the middle of the Appalachian Trail, the middle of the end, the middle of your husband's life, the middle of a birth, the middle of the late-night hospital shift, the middle of a dark street, the middle of a good love, the middle of a cup of coffee, the middle of sabbatical, the middle of a sleepless night, the middle of an ice storm, in the middle of winter, the middle of a swimming pool, the middle of your wife's retirement, the middle of the afternoon, the middle of a guest room, the middle of the semester, and then into the middle of the earth, dirt resting below and above you, into the middle of a place suspicious and new, into the middle of white or ghosts or angels or nothingness, into the middle of knowledge or wisdom or omniscience or peace, or into the middle of nowhere, into the middle of eternity, into the middle of the great past, or thrust into the middle of someone else's story, or into the middle of some animal's good strong body, the middle, always the middle, edging toward the end and away from the beginning, but lost somewhere in the middle, at the intersection of many middles. Dark corner. At the once beautiful hotel we try to eat breakfast. There is only an egg still in its shell. You can have it. I tell the man the coffee's gone. He assures me 2 minutes and disappears into the back room. You used to work at a hotel, 16 in and out of guest rooms, collecting trays. Hello, thank you, have a nice day. Once you brought eggs to a man, and when he turned around after signing the bill, the tie on his bathrobe slipped. I watch the bar across the room. Only the ghosts of ghosts are drinking this morning, not a rowdy bunch. Tired from their night travels in and out of strangers' rooms, never touching the furniture, only the sleeping faces that have forgotten the bodies they belong to. Damaged sofas line the halls of the 7 floors. No one touches them, except for wandering or waiting children who, when left to themselves, are not afraid of things damaged and worn. Years from now, at the hotel liquidators, people will see these couches and say, yes, yes, this is exactly the type of thing you would find in an old hotel. They will buy more domestic pieces, a chair with yellow upholstery from the St. Regis, a small carafe to put flowers or milk in, a painting for a bedroom. I tell you, I wish we could stay here longer, in this hotel of lost grandeur, this palace of interesting disarray, and stay here with these pieces of the impersonal past that have somehow not yet outlasted their small lights. 20 minutes later, the man brings out the coffee. He smiles and says he almost forgot, as if once again surprising himself. October snow. When we arrived at the funeral home, it began to snow, suggesting that to us the sun too had trouble heaving its great body from bed that morning. It too was suffering in the startled space which a youth as lovely as a god has suddenly left forever. You didn't look like you, your head so badly bruised it could not be concealed. At night, verses flew at me with more wind than ever. I let them come, transcribed them from their first airy dictation, threw off the body's desire for sleep. I let them bury themselves in my head, my hair, my head, wherever they could find rest in this temporary home of my body. I sought to separate a part of myself, whether it was the mind, the soul, the spirit. I wanted to know at once and definitively our animal bodies were not all we were. It is shameful to be this fragile. This is a longer piece called Mary, and I'm gonna read some sections of it, so I'll bop around a little bit. And this is the one Robbie was referring to in his introduction. Mary. Mary held her hands wide open. I reached out to them, to the hands of Mary on the hill at my great-grandma's house, Mary at the top of the hill, Mary at the edge of the woods, Holy Mary, Mary, Mother of God, Mary, Mary, Mary. In every church, Mary held her white hands open, I find written in a poem. My version would be, on the hill Mary held her hands wide open. I would sometimes walk up to her and kneel. I remember quite liking her. Mary doesn't like it when I pee and sing. And I don't like Mary. Mary's the tyrant, making me feel ashamed for singing while I pee, even if it is her house. Okay, I did like Mary, elementary school Mary, but I didn't like that she made me feel embarrassed for singing while I peed. I lie. I tell her I wasn't. I say I was only singing before I peed and that I stopped to go to the bathroom. She says, no, I heard you singing and peeing at the same time. She insists I heard the singing and the pee. My first Mary. My first Mary was my great-aunt Mary, my mom's aunt. She lived in Ohio. We sent her videos and letters and possibly Flat Stanley. We drove from Connecticut to visit her. She lived with her brother. After she died, he moved to Alaska and began building a cabin. We went to her house and took some things to remember her by. I took a black crescent moon ring and little shirts. I don't know what else to call them. Red, navy, and white, that were supposed to make it look like you were wearing a turtleneck when you weren't. Bloody Mary. Let's not start with Mary. Let's start with Chelsea. The kids in elementary school made fun of Chelsea. She was new to the school and had blonde, almost white hair and blue eyes. Someone said she was albino. It caught on. Everyone said she had a pig nose. Chelsea told us about Bloody Mary. You were supposed to spin around 3 times in front of the mirror and say something, and again, and then she would appear. I never tried. I was too scared. I don't know if Chelsea did either. The Sorrowing Virgin. I didn't know at first that it was Mary, as she was going by another name. What a thing to be known as, the Sorrowing Virgin, and so publicly. Why must the Virgin sorrow? Why mustn't the Virgin triumph? I know this story, and I admit there is a certain ring to the Sorrowing Virgin, but surely there are better things she could be called. Isn't there also a certain ring to the Triumphing Virgin, the Ecstatic Virgin, the Virgin of Ecstasy? The Sorrowing Virgin's eyes are made of glass beads and are raised skyward, making her look possessed, which leads me to the question, can sorrow possess you? Can it make a possession of you? Can it inhabit you so you are no longer your own, if we are ever our own? Can sorrow make a home of you, the way we are making a home of Mary? What is the process like, and how long does it take? Can sorrow burrow into a person over time, or does it sometimes cut a hole right through? I found Mary because I was looking for my friend in the museum. I thought she was my friend for a moment. I consider if my friend would be more of a Magdalene or a virgin. I decide she would not really be either Mary. I'm sure there is a more fitting one. Quick detour, Rodin's hands. At the museum, I also see Rodin's hands. I wonder if he ever sculpted Mary, that is, her hands, and if her fingers were long or short, that is, whichever particular Mary he sculpted. He may have sculpted the hands of many Marys. Rodin thought the creative life involved suffering and martyrdom, and I might agree. I'm still deciding. I find out he sculpted Christ and Mary Magdalene, which I did not know, and this one I did not see. I'm sorry, I only wanted to find a way to include Rodin's hands, that is, the ones he sculpted, not his own. I wonder if he sculpted his own. Mary and her 7 bedraggled devils. Marie Howe, in her poem Magdalene, the 7 Devils, tells us about Mary Magdalene's 7 devils. Some are rotating. They are given up and then replaced, sometimes with ones that are only slightly different. It seems true we get rid of one devil only to replace it with the next. Some of my favorite devils in the poem are that no one knew me, although they thought they did, and that if people thought of me as little as I thought of them, then what was love? That the dead seemed more alive to me than the living. I didn't think you, if I told you, would understand any of this. She is often busy and considers this a devil. This is repeated throughout the poem. That I projected onto others what I myself was feeling. I knew I was breathing the expelled breath of everything that was alive, and I couldn't stand it. The 7th was the way my mother looked when she was dying, her mouth wrenched into an O, so as to take in as much air. Mary, I hear if you look at your devils, yes, just glance back at them, they won't have as much power over you. Mary and I, we have some of the same devils, but mostly we have different ones. There is not always a devil floating near. Often the air seems clear of devils, and I can breathe easy, even while knowing I am breathing the expelled breath of everything that was alive. Honestly, this isn't something I often think about, and when I do, I find it comforting. What's in Mary? An army, an arm, a yam, a ram, a ray, ma, Amy, nay, am. What Mary's in? Marty, martyr, martyrdom, martyred, Mary, Marilyn, army. Martyr only has one additional letter than Mary, and the repeated R. This leads me to the question, are Marys often mistaken for martyrs? It seems they might be. I do not know if she wants to be in the army, but it's such a perfect fit. Mary and I have 2 of the same letters in our first names, but Mary cannot fit into me, nor I into her. Mary as rebel. Of all the meanings of the name Mary, bitterness, beloved, wished for a child. Rebelliousness is the one I like best. Mary is a rebel. In Mary, a rebellion stirs. A rebel is Mary. Mary as saint. At the silent meditation retreat, we are told, if we like, we can pick a saint or figure to inspire us. It does not occur to me to choose Mary. I learned later we were actually told not to do this, so it is good that I did not. Mary as rebel saint. Aren't saints a sort of rebel, really? They are certainly rebelling from the norm. This is an imagined Mary, but she's the one I think I would like best. A more appealing version of sainthood, not the type most oft depicted, by G.K. Chesterton. Virtue is not the absence of vices or the avoidance of moral dangers. Virtue is a vivid and separate thing, like pain or a particular smell. Chastity does not mean abstention from sexual wrong. It means something flaming, like Joan of Arc. I imagine Mary has some of this peculiar wild flame. Mary is good, fiery good, and everywhere. That was a really fun piece to write, and the writers in the crowd, I highly recommend that as a prompt, choosing a name and just letting your obsessions, infatuations, collections, associations come in. Endless material. Ode to Eventide. Everything near becomes distant. Sweet thee of geese, you running off the horizon, hair blown back by wind. Everything you love has left this house, is burning. Everything near becomes distant. A dark snow has fallen, has changed the world so completely you could not claim it as your own. Everything near becomes distant. Your face, the moon now, still glowing, unreachable, even for my hands. And that quote, everything near becomes distant, is Goethe in German, and I didn't try to say the German for you today, which you might be thankful for. All the girls were there, and gorgeous. All the girls were there, and gorgeous, my grandmother says from her bed at the Alzheimer Center. I admire the poetry of her words, the unusual syntax, the regular meter. All the girls were there, and gorgeous. I wonder which year she is in, which room. I imagine the girls are dancing. I imagine my grandfather there. I wonder if he notices any of the girls are gorgeous except for her. My grandmother, whose hair was once so thick the rain bounced off it, she said. My grandfather who loved her more than she loved him. I remember their bickering, how it made us sad. I could not have made it with anyone else, she said. I kiss her cheek, I hold her cracked hands, they are always dry. I wonder about the part of her that is here, the part that is elsewhere. We do not like to visit her. I hope she does not know. All the gorgeous girls are leaving, but my grandmother remains, awake in her life, though she doesn't know it. And this will be my last one. Thank you all. All Souls. It is 1988 and I have no idea what you're wearing. I wasn't born yet. What did you wear then? In pictures, you are smiling, have short hair. I was born at night, 11-something. I've never known how close it was to not being All Souls Day. End of fall. The skeleton trees already speaking of winter with their undressed branches. I am 5. I love my mom. I write it at school. By this age, you had already lost your mom. 20 years later, I ask you about my earliest memories, and you tell me yours. You remember taking a bath with your mom, then later going to the hospital. Was she already gone when you got there? You lose a tooth. No one cares. You wiggle another one out. No one cares. The last one comes out. No one notices. You and your sister search the house for something to eat, taking tiny scoops of peanut butter, whatever could easily go unnoticed. Your stepmom does notice, and you will paint the garage for it that summer. There will be no music to listen to while you paint. You will not love the Beatles. You will not sing, "Why Don't We Do It in the Road?" You will sing your own song, but it will come later. Later, later, it will come later. Later, you will learn to sing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to say it's an honor to read here today with Chard too, who has been a devoted poet for many years and is a key literary citizen in Vermont. So I'm excited to hear you, Chard. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Carlene. That was spellbinding. You really set a lovely tone for this day. And now I have the great pleasure of introducing Chard deNiord, who was responsible for sucking me into working on this festival, and we had many long meetings in festivals past, and he has been such a glorious literary citizen. So it's wonderful. Chard deNiord is the author of 8 books of poetry, most recently Westminster West, In My Unknowing, and Interstate. He is also the author of 2 books of interviews with eminent American poets titled Sad Friends, Drowned Lovers, Stapled Songs, Conversations, and Reflections on 20th Century Poetry, and I Would Lie to You If I Could. He co-founded the New England College MFA program in 2001 and the Ruth Stone Foundation in 2011. He served as Poet Laureate of Vermont from 2015 to 2019 and taught English and creative writing for 22 years at Providence College, where he is now a professor emeritus. He lives in Westminster West, Vermont, with his wife, the painter Liz Hawks deNiord. Chard, look, you can't wait to get up here. I'm not done. Chard deNiord has a remarkably attuned ear for voices, human and animal, historical and modern, conjured from dreamscapes and quotidian observations of our bruised yet beautiful existence. In his latest poetry collection, Westminster West, he pulls from the page an astonishing array of intimate dialogues and searching soliloquies as he ranges across continents and centuries, circling finally down into the elemental Vermont landscapes he has come to call home. Heloise and Abelard carry on an intimate and sensual correspondence that feels at once contemporary and rooted in medieval sensibilities of 1,000 years past. Adam and Eve lament their expulsion from the garden, while the night nurse charts narratives of her patient's madness as a counterpoint to an unease about her own sanity. The poet observes a helicopter rescue of an injured hiker from Mount Monadnock and a centennial celebration of the close of the Civil War at Appomattox, swelling with empathy for the casualties in both scenarios. Mortality stalks the margins of many of these pages, in the glimpsed interior of a smoker's lung in bronchoscopy, and in the bloodlust of chainsaw-wielding arborists in The Loggers. In I Stand Beneath the Mountain with an Illiterate Heart, deNiord is humbled by the liquid song of the hermit thrush at dusk, and he sings a response to it in his own inadequate human voice. I either live in this mercy or not, he declares, singing in the dark. This is poetry, wild yet refined, pure in its hard-sung yearning. Please welcome Chard deNiord.
Wow, thank you, Robbie. Thank you, Carlene Those are just such stunning, gorgeous, strange hymns that you've read and written. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here, and I just want to start very briefly by saying thank you to all the organizers here at the Brattleboro Literary Festival, which has been going on now for 18 years or something? 22 years, my God. I used to be one of the organizers here, and I would love to still help. But Robbie and Tim do such a fabulous job, and Sandy, who started, is still here with us, just providing such strong leadership and attracting writers from all over the country to one of now the most prestigious and eminent literary festivals in the country. So I just want to thank all of you guys for doing such a wonderful job and sticking with it, because I know from working with you guys that it's not easy and thankless at times. So just a great pleasure to be here today with Carlene and you, all the writers here. So I hope you all enjoy this festival, this more than busy day that's about to happen here with the No Kings march outside, as well as the festival. I hope it can all come together in a way that works. So I'm going to read a poem. I was going to read some more recent poems from these two books, Westminster West and one is Other, which I'm going to do, but also a few new poems. I was trying to decide what to write yesterday, and the crows were just screaming at me outside, and they said, "Write about me. Can't you hear what I'm saying?" And so I dictated, and so I want to read a poem about the beloved crows that sing to me as just a new poem. It's kind of risky always to read a new poem, but I'm going to read about these crows. They're crying in the locust behind the house in the way they do, in their loud primordial dialect that betrays a tone of confidence in just what they're talking about, but are forbidden to say exactly in English or any other language because, B-E-C-A-W-S, they were singing from a score that was written in the sky so many eons ago as a pentimento behind its blue, and the clouds by the god of darkness and the void, commanding them to speak in only runes to all the reprobates below who can never know the meanings exactly of the sermons they preach in the voice of an angry God, and then laugh maniacally at their own inscrutable jokes that they are forbidden by the Lord to ever explain or apologize for or give any hint for just what their punchlines might imply, much less actually mean, leaving us all below on the ground, forced to guess, as if knowing we only think the worst. How thirsty I grow from being satisfied. The same sugar that rises from the earth rises also in me. I plant myself on a bank, masquerade as a willow, weep with joy above the river, weep with sorrow above the river. This is the still ritual for feet to know the earth like a root, to imagine the body as a tree. My tears are clear, both sweet and bitter. One leaf cries out to another, empty me today of all my color. Fill me tomorrow with a shot of sugar. I forgot the poetry that comes so easily, that teaches me the calculus of one as other, X is Y, 7, X is Y, 3 is 7, depending on the problem that's always given. I mastered the music of science and feeling, in which the notes and music were moot, and the numbers burned. This has a little epigraph to it from Zeno. Do you all know who Zeno was? The Greek philosopher who came up with one of the most wonderful conundrums of all time. And here it is. Any moving object must reach halfway on a course before it reaches the end. And because there are an infinite number of halfway points, a moving object never reaches the end in a finite time. I call out to you. I call out to you from the porch to meet me on the porch, to teach me again how to solve the distance between you and me as a void that's far too full of halves, no matter how close we get to each other, but which you in turn find a way to cross each time by breaking the law of long division that saves me then from mathematical oblivion, and into which I'd fall each time without your hold of me on the ledge of a half. How to teach poetry to freshmen, which I did for 32 years at the Putney School and then at Providence College. It was always fun. Poetry happens when words fall for each other like randy teenagers on a hot summer night in one of their father's pickup trucks, in which before you can say one F-150 or Tacoma or Silverado, they start flirting and then kissing and feeling each other up under a full moon beside a placid lake down a dirt road somewhere, and then rhyming and caesuring and alighting and anaphering and alliterating and assignating and in jamming, and then ending in a couplet of sound and sense that sings in the dark without any immediate or overbearing need for meaning that's nonetheless there, which is how you can tell it's poetry in the final breaths of the little deaths when it's over. The other, the sacred other. You must believe without any evidence or reason that your beloved is standing behind you, waiting for you to turn around by rotating only a little at first, and then some more until you see her face and smell his hair that emanates a scent that's a lot like yours, only better. Then feel the tickle of her breath on your lips and cheeks, and hear his voice that speaks your name with an accent you've never heard before, but are drawn to for its inflections and music, although you're still afraid to turn completely around and behold her there as your beloved, who appears so stunning you find it hard to believe he's actually there, and wonder if maybe she's a ghost or a vision, although he seems so real and alive, with lilac breath and riveting stare. You can feel the charge of her skin through his dress that causes you in turn to believe against every reason and fear, and the mystery that compels you to keep turning around until you behold her form and visage so completely it continues to beguile you each time you blink, and become so dizzy you can't stop staring at her as the cynosure who stands at the center of your turning, which causes you next to grow oblivious to everything else, because you've met him now in the flesh and can think of nothing else besides her in the danger zone of turning around, which causes you in yet another turn, a close call with oncoming traffic and loss of appetite and forgetfulness, which you only survive at the mercy of a God who is employed by another God whose name you're forbidden to speak, although the animals repeat it daily in the wild, until in media res you race of your obsession with him, you find yourself in private with her in a room somewhere beside a river with the exigent need to make an exchange from you to him in the transitory realm of eternal being from which you walk away together into the world from which you came when your life had yet to be transformed by turning around to behold your other so you could walk away together then into a field like God's, remembering that moment you first espied each other in your raiment of everyday clothes and embraced as one, although you were two, and so vastly different you could never have known from seeing her face that he was the one, if you're ever to love. I think Carlene mentioned some sonnets here that are ancient, so I might read just a couple. This is Adam's Lament. You came the last, but were the first to learn that coming last, you were the first in turn. A second thought of God's, a dream of mine. I understand the curse of your position. I too would pray for even a subtle sign. My case unravels as my faith conditions. You were blessed with beauty. I can't object. I understand you wanting back my dream. Your bitter syllogism is correct. I am a man and thus not what I seem. A son of God who cannot die or grieve. I would have vivified the children too from dream, but they unborn and yet to be deceived came only after we had been deceived. Eve responds, I'm granted a few last words by an oak that only listens, a few vain wishes and cigarettes I love to roll and smoke. I wish my husband, the minor poet of fishes and trees, had regarded the world with a greater vision, had paused for a moment to hear the ocean's legion of silent names. See how he tags and ribbons the trees as if they were endangered women. See how he stares forever at what's forbidden, each flower and droop, each pomegranate and lemon. Why listen to the man who'd rather polish his tongue than study the koans of the child beside him, than cleanse his soul with the coal of a seraphim? I'm on my way to a country that cannot be sung. This is a poem called Second Paradise. It took only about 50 years to write. My wife and I were married when we were 18, and fortunately are still here together. But this kind of recalls a walk we took when we were actually just 17. Poetry is along the, let's see, I'm trying to remember the name of the river. Does it matter? The Housatonic. I went for a walk. Well, actually, it has a little epigraph too. Poetry is a dream made in the presence of reason. That's really one of the best quotes I ever heard by Adam Zagajewski. Poetry is a dream made in the presence of reason. I went for a walk with a girl I hardly knew when I was a boy on a trail by a river for a film I didn't know was being made by a director I could see or hear behind his hidden camera in the clouds and trees as we recited our lines unwittingly with no idea of the plot or ending as we walked for miles in that paradise of a park, which is why we were killing it on that cerulean day in a way that was more real than the trail itself, which has been raised, I've heard, for a housing project, which means the world in which we live today has become an illusion, since we both still walk that trail where we were born a second time in a paradise we walk to this day in our heads, although it's no longer there, despite the fact it seems more real than when we were there, enchanted with each other, striking our tongues against our teeth to light the tinder between our legs and ears, and then our hearts that needed proof of fire in the air as we walked like ghosts until we were lost in a grove beside the trail and laid down somewhere we could never find our way back to, and made love on a bed of moss despite our fear, where we were eternalized in the film which we continue to screen as a non sequitur in quotidian moments like right now on the patio, where we balance our dinners on our knees and divine the darkness behind our eyes, to dream awake of that time we disappeared into a vast which plays on the screen that hangs from a cloud, on which our short that is so long is projected in color one day and black and white the next, transcending time in the way it did that day on our walk beside a river, in which we witnessed enough of heaven's fire in its water to weld our memory of that ecstatic walk to a vision that would last in the grass of days we called forever, although we are deluded by the film that has no credits for the sake of heaven and witness in its showings to the irony of metaphysics that surrenders love and even the river to sweet oblivion. Just a few more here. When you get to be a little older, you just really begin to wonder what sex is. Exactly. It always seems kind of so obvious. And then you wake up one morning and just say, what the hell is it? Maybe I'm just weird that way. But anyway, so I decided to write a villanelle about it. Well, no, it's not a villanelle. It's just a poem. There's another villanelle later. Oh, yeah, it is a villanelle. Okay, sex is, I can confuse myself. Sex is a see-through dress we wear in the rain, the crucifix on which to hang our skirts and jeans throughout the night and into the day. Sex is the nail that only drives part way, then bends, the trail of snakes across the earth. Sex is the lords and voids inside the clay that turn to flesh from breath in a single day. Sex is the salve we rub into the hurt, the sweet, addictive sweat that smells like hay. Sex is the knife we use in the dark to betray our love for a smile, cut out its heart. Sex is the fire that burns all day and into the night. The prayer, too easy to say. Sex is the wanted God who hides in the dirt, the master spy behind the lines, the gray then bleeding sky on the 8th impossible day on which we were moved by shame to flirt. Sex is the evening wear we wear all day, the tight reptilian suit that smells like hay. I'm only getting a small part of it. The lake is a lens for reading the stars from underneath. What I forgot comes back to me like a gift, and I think, I'm only getting a small part of it. And I think, I'm only getting a small part of it. I'm only seeing with my eyes and hearing with my ears. So, how is poetry some kind of emotional, social therapy for us? I continue to ask that question, especially in a time of such trauma and horror as we're experiencing right now in the world. And after watching so many casualties in Gaza, I had to write a little bit about it. Grief is the river with a foreign name that floods your heart, pulling you in with a musical force you can't resist for the song it plays inside the silence of the things they left that meant everything to them but nothing now to anyone else. The dress, the toy, the drawing, transformers each in the current that runs through the country of your heart. Shock and numb, which is why you imagine earth as heaven when you see a face in the surface of the river, memories mirror, and think it's real, although you know it's floating to the sea, where it will join the others, although you swear at the God of time who leads you by the hand into the river and squeezes your chest and holds your head under the water until you join them there, although you're sitting on your porch in front of the mountain and the birds are singing and the clouds are floating like letters that form no words on the pages of sky that just keep turning. My father was a doctor, and he always wanted me to be a doctor. Of course, because my grandparents were doctors, my great. So I didn't know how to tell him I couldn't do it. Take me to watch operations, horribly gross operations, and I was impressed and wanted to be a doctor, but I just could only get B's in chemistry, so that wasn't going to work. But one of the things he loved to take me to watch were bronchoscopies. He was a thoracic surgeon. So this is a story about that. My father wanted me to see what he did for a living, with the hope that I'd grow up to do the same, which was to operate on people while they lay sleeping in the dreamless dark of anesthesia. So one day when I was 12, he took me to Clifton Forge, Virginia, where he worked as the company surgeon for the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad, and asked me to peer down into the lung of an elderly engineer through a bronchial scope that he had threaded through his trachea and was moving around his upper and lower lobes. He asked me to step on a stool that he had placed beside the engineer, seated below on a similar stool, as he held the shiny tool like a sword in both his hands, and asked me to take a look. So I did, without knowing what to say except, okay. Now look down there like I just did, he said, which I did with one eye closed and the other spying with the vast reticulate labyrinth of speckled lung and its sepia lining of pleura. The scope was lit by a tiny bulb that pierced the darkness of his insides, what I would later come to call the Newman Saccus, when I'd grown and come to see the seat of breath as the spirit's home. And the more I looked, the more darkness rose, despite the light at the end of the tube, since I felt sure I was spying the end of this man's life in the specter of a shade that entered my eye. It was then, in only a moment of my gazing away, that I saw in the beam of the instrument's lens the brilliant lamp of an engineer barreling down on me with more than 100 cars behind it full of coal, and this psychopomp at his window and controls, waving at me in the din of his train on its hundreds of wheels, shaking the trees and sleepers, shining the tracks in squeals. And the whistle, too, piercing my ears as it rose to the clouds where it disappeared into the sky's cerulean blue, which was when, without any warning or signal from my father to move my head away from the scope, that the engineer coughed, a ghastly cough, trembling as he did from his shoulders down, propelling a wad of phlegm into my eye. My father chuckled like a god, then joked, "Welcome to medicine, son." As I fell back into the arms of the nurse behind me, who said, "You got an eyeful there, young man," then wiped it off. The holy sputum, my father reported the following week when the word came back from the lab that it had tested positive for cancer cells. But it remained that phlegm as a film in my eye that's thickened with age to a strong, clear lens for seeing straight through the scope of time to the various desultory, inevitable ends of everyone I meet. I'm going to just read one or two more. This is a checklist for today. The bone that aches in the rain of lies, a turnip instead of cake, the fire that feeds on the breath of witnesses, even a stone that speaks, the echo of her no in the outskirts and streets, the sword he brought instead of peace, the red coal in angel places on the tongue like a treat, the sentence of his sentence, pennies worth more than gold, others and then some. The tree with so many tongues that says, the truth resides inside the wind and blows for those who hear it. A kiss on the cheek that doesn't turn, the nerve that takes its stand by keeping its seat. The pauper in the park who says, of these ends it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. The bell that heals itself by singing, by ringing, a smile in the hole, the eye that sees when closed, waking, waking. Have any of you guys been driving out to Putney lately? Westminster West? Yeah. Have you noticed all the darn linemen out there working on the lines for like 3 or 4 months? What's that? In town too? And I can't figure out what they're doing exactly. But it's elaborate. I thought they were going to bury the lines, but they're not. You know, it's just like, but endless work on poles and lines. Yeah. So I mean, I know it's necessary, but I'm just waiting to see exactly how, because we still have power. Emergency repair at Putney, Vermont. All the boys were down that way anyway, working on some other lines after the storm, so they just drove up to where the tree had fallen on a wire and snapped a pole and went to work cutting the power first and then clearing the wire that had coiled like a snake across the road, wriggling with sparks as it did, and then proceeded to drill a hole with a giant auger for the brand new pole that they then lowered from up high with another lever that controlled the boom and then inserted it into the hole, which they packed with dirt and stones before the boss ascended in a bucket to the place where the wire had broken and strung a new one there along with a white ceramic insulator, and then descended after about an hour when he was done to call his boss up north to tell him that he was done so he could now turn the goddamn power back on. I'll just end with a really quick, short one. It's called poetry. The secret I have no say in keeping is safe with me and everyone else who sees himself in the space between the stars. How to tell what can't be said. Just sing, said the man in the opposite cell. I like the one about the frog. So I did. To his brief, ecstatic applause. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chard. I'm just still scooping the phlegm out of my eye. We have a couple minutes. If we have any questions or comments, I can go into talk show host mode and maybe move this microphone. There we go. Oh, yeah, that one's got a table on it.
No.
Oh, there's one in here?
Bench.
There it is. Yeah, there we go. Great. Shall I give this one to you, Tim? Yeah. Yes. Any questions or comments for our illustrious poets? Or we're just still absorbing? Well, we can go forth and enjoy the rest of this crystal clear morning then. And thank you so much to both Carlene and Chard.
There should be books in the back, and the poets will be more than willing to sign a book that you buy. And thank you for coming, and enjoy the rest of the festival.
Okay.